If you've been playing long enough, no doubt you will have run into the concept of the modes. Now in this video we're going to take a look at a rather frank view of the modes, what they are, what they aren't, when to be concerned about them, and when you don't really need to be. I think these things get taught a lot of times in ways that are not really complete. So I'm going to work on demystifying this for you, probably over a series of videos, as I don't think one video really can cover it all. But we're going to set a foundation for that today, so let's get started. The way the modes are often taught is a series of fretboard shapes with a mode name attached to them, like Ionian or Dorian or Phrygian. And to be honest, that was the way I had initially learned them as well. And just when I think I had a grasp of what the modes were, when I went to go apply them, I realized I'm really nowhere nearly as fluent with the ideas I thought I would be. And this might ring true for you as well. So the first thing I want to do is get you to stop thinking about shapes as modes. Just because this one starts on G and goes through all the natural notes does not mean that that is G Mixolydian and that's it. We're going to take a look at the 7 shapes that you would learn, except what we're going to do is we're going to stop thinking of each shape as a separate mode, and instead we're going to look at it as a family member of a major scale. At the end of the day, the modes are components of the major scale starting from a different note, but that's part of what I'm going to correct as well, the one thing I just said. Anyway, step number 1, let's review the 7 shapes, and we're going to look at them as components of a single major scale first. Let's check it out. Now there are different systems for learning scales. The most common in rock and metal and a lot of other popular styles would be the strict 3-note per string variety. There are others. The one I'm going to show you today is going to be a derivative of that. Each shape is going to have 3 notes per string, except for one string out of the bunch will have 2 notes. Now the reason why I'm going to work with this is the way I initially learned the shapes. The benefit of it is that it all will stay in one compact area of the fretboard and not veer weirdly to the right near the end, so to speak. You'll see what I mean in a second. So let's do this in the key of C major. So again, what we're going to do is look at the C major scale. We're going to begin each shape from the next consecutive note of that scale. And that scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. It's very much like running your finger down the white keys of a piano, just all the natural notes. So here's C major beginning on C. We're going to start at the 8th fret. I'm just going to quickly run through these in terms of fret numbers. The tab and everything will be provided for you in the description. So here we go, 8th fret C on the 6th string. Ignore my 7th string for now. We're going to do 8, 10, 12 for 2 strings, 9, 10, 12 for 2 strings, 10, 12 on the B string, and notice I don't use my index finger, simply because up to that point I haven't been using my index finger for the 10 or the 12, I've been using my middle and my pinky. So I'm going to maintain that, and the other thing is that allows me to end the same way I began. I began with 8, 10, 12, I'm going to end with 8, 10, 12. So you can see that this scale, with that one string that has 2 notes, is in a nice compact area of the fretboard, and you may have noticed, unlike straight 3-note per string scales, it's an even number of bars on the way up and an even number of bars on the way back, so there's a predictability to it. This is great if you're just getting into learning scales, particularly major and minor type scales. This can be helpful, knowing that you're going to end on the beat and start over on the beat. There's just some familiarity to it that I think is comforting. Long story short, let's take a look at shape number 2. So this is the same group of notes, except we're going to begin on the D, which is the 10th fret. So if the scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, we're doing the same notes. It's the same train. We're just jumping on the second car of that train. We're jumping on the D and doing D, E, F, G, A, B, C until we run out of strings. That's going to look like this. 10, 12, 13 on your E string. Two strings are going to have 10, 12, 14. Your third string is going to have 10 and 12. And I'm going to end with 10, 12, 13 again on both the B and the E string. So you'll notice here, if you do this the way I'm doing it, you don't need your middle finger for anything for this particular shape. So the way we want to think about this is it's still the C major scale, it just so happens that we jumped on it at D and went completely through. It's not we're not going to look at it as D Dorian or anything. So just bear with me on this one. You'll see where I'm going with this in a sec. The next one is going to start on E, the third note. So this one is going to be 12, 13, 15 on the sixth string. 12, 14, 15 on strings 5 and 4. Third string is going to be 12, 14. And the last two strings, strings B and E, are going to both be 12, 13, 15 again. So once again, you'll notice it ends the same way it starts. And you won't get that with the strict 3 note per string versions of it. So for now, okay, so that's the one that starts on the third note. Let's take a look at the fourth one. I'm going to come back down here to the first fret. We could keep going higher and higher and higher on the fretboard, but let's face it, we've kind of neglected everything from the 8th fret back, so let's not do that. We're going to start on F, which is the fourth note of the C major scale. It still is the C major scale, but like I said, we're jumping on the F cart of that train, so to speak. So we're going to get 1, 3, 5 on the sixth string. Strings 5 and 4 will both be 2, 3, 5. Third string is going to be 2, 4, 5. We're going to do 3, 5 on the second string, and again, notice I'm not using my index. That is now free to allow me to end the same way we started. So F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Again, just the notes of the C major scale, we just happen to jump on F. All right, we got a few more. We're going to go through them fairly quickly so that we can spend more time talking about the other details. So here we are. G is the fifth note of the C major scale. So this shape is going to be 3 strings of 3, 5, 7. Now it can be fairly stretchy in this area if you're not used to doing these double whole step sort of shapes. I prefer to use my middle finger for the middle note. I find it easier to stretch fingers 1 and 2 to accommodate that than I do to stretch my ring and pinky, which some players prefer. Some players will prefer the middle finger or the middle note to be done with the ring finger. That is totally fine. Whatever works for you is going to be just fine. So 3, 5, 7 for 3 strings. 4, 5, 7 for the G string. Here's a weird one. Second string is going to be 5, 6. And again, with these 2 note strings, I'm very rarely using the index finger. This one's middle and ring. And again, that allows me to end the same way I started. Okay, 2 more to go. We're going to do the one that starts on the 6th note of C major, which is A. This is going to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way up until we run out of strings. And that one's going to be 5, 7, 8 for 2 strings. 5, 7, 9 on the D string. Now notice there I actually do use my ring finger. Again, if you want to use the middle, that's cool. I think the reason why I do use the pinky and the ring here is because I'm going to use the index and ring for this string. So yeah, that's the way I do it anyway. But this string, the third string, is going to have only 2 notes on it, 5 and 7. And then we're going to end with 5, 6, 8 on the B string and 5, 7, 8 again on the high E string. Okay, and finally, shape number 7 is going to begin on the 7th note of C major, which is in fact B. A lot of people like this shape because there's no stretches, so it's nice and compact and easy on the hand. This one's going to go 7, 8, 10 for 2 strings, 7, 9, 10 for 2 strings, 8, 10 on the 2nd string here, and this again, no index finger. And I'm going to end, as always, with the way we started, 7, 8, 10. And there is all 7 shapes of C major. The beauty of this is that once you have the 7 shapes memorized and thought of as a C major family, once you change key and once you learn how to do that, and that is something we'll cover, how to actually change to whatever key you want or need, those 7 shapes will not change. What does change is their location, because as you're going to see in this system, we're not going to name each shape. We're not going to call them Dorian, Phrygian, any of that. We are, however, going to provide a number for each one, and that number will directly correspond with the number in the scale of whatever scale. So for example, if you only learned one shape, let's say you learned shape 7, and that's named such because it begins on the 7th note of whatever key you're in. So let's say you're in the key of, I don't know, let's say G major, for example. If you even only knew that one shape, you could still play the G major scale as long as you begin that shape from the 7th note of G, which is F sharp. Now, I don't expect you to understand that if you're not into the theory end of it or you're not sure of your key signatures, but let's just say you knew that note was F sharp. Any F sharp on the 6th string will do. We'll do this one up here. If you begin that note or that scale from that particular note, instantly the notes of G major fall into place. This is true of all 7 shapes. So going back to the key that we originally started in, C major, those 7 shapes, when you place them right where we did, I'm going to tell you right now, those will be all the modes, those will be any of the modes of C major. The problem that I see a lot of the time is when they designate a shape and call it a mode, it really is not 100% incorrect by any means. But it sure is pulling the wool over your eyes in terms of making you think that you're getting the full picture. You're not. Any of those shapes will produce the sound of any of the modes that you need. Think of it that way. If you knew or thought of these shapes as a huge family, this whole family has the same DNA. This whole family has the same 7 notes. So the shape itself does not determine the mode. And I'm going to go even further and say the first note that you play does not determine the mode. A lot of people like to say that, oh, the A Aeolian has to start on A. No, it doesn't. It can start on any note within the same scale. It'll still be Aeolian because the key is not what the beginning note is. The key to determining the mode is the chord that you're playing over. Now let that sink in for a second, because a lot of the time that's not taught that way. It's taught it's got to start on this note in order for it to be the legit thing. If that's true, then that's like saying the key of a song is determined by the first chord. Well, tell that to the Kinks. If that's the case, Lola is in the key of C because that happened to be the first chord. Okay, so anybody who knows that song or anybody who is well versed in key signatures and all that kind of thing, they're going to say, yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. the first note, the first chord is not the indicator of what's going on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at how the chord underneath what you're doing is what's actually determining the mode for you. And what I think you're going to find, and I don't want to give you a spoiler for the next video, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's going to highlight for you just how much you don't actually need to think about this stuff at all. Which should be a great relief, because I know a lot of players out there stress greatly over the modes because they think they're super important, or they just feel they really want to know it and grasp it because they've heard other players mention it. And it is important, but it's only important in a certain context. So that's what we're going to take a look at next time. In the meantime, the shapes that we just laid out here, I'm going to provide for free via a link in the description of this video, and watch it for some more. This is, like I said, this is probably going to be a multi-video series because I understand how much people and players really want to know this stuff, but there are so many facets to the modes in truly understanding them that you can't really cover them in one video without leaving something out or falling asleep. So check it out, and we'll catch you next time.